All right, folks, Yishai Fleischer here, broadcasting from Judea to the world. You're a part of it wherever you are. Mehdi Hasan is one of Israel's most vehement critics. He's out there besmirching Israel left and right using his media outlets like Al Jazeera or his new one called Zeteo. He'll admit it. He's been striking at Israel throughout his whole career. Maybe that has something to do with the fact that he comes from Shiite stock. He is a Shiite Muslim. And he believes that Israel should be destroyed, but he, makes it fancy with a fancy tie and fancy words. He makes it sound fancy. Now, Israel's very good at striking back at those who attack it physically and kinetically. We make war against those who make war against us. But that's true in the physical battlefield. But in the narrative war, we're much weaker. And this guy is one of our great enemies. He's a Goliath. Let's watch what he has to say, how he debunks Israel's right to exist, and let's see if we could debunk his debunkment. Mehdi Hasan, here you go.
I have been debating hardcore Zionists, Israelis, supporters of Israel for years now.
He's never debated me, right? He's never called me on. And I like the name hardcore Zionist. Hardcore Zionist right here. Proud of it.
Decades. And the conversation always comes back to one line, one phrase, one talking point. Do you or do you not support Israel's right to exist? You've all heard that line before, right? It's the go-to move.
It's the go-to move. I've never said that you have to defend Israel's right to exist.
You don't support Israel's right to exist, you're an extremist. You're an anti-Semite.
Well, if you don't support Israel's right to exist, then I guess you really are an anti-Israel person, right? You're an anti-Semite, right? Because you don't support Israel's right to exist. Right? So you want to see Israel destroyed. If you can't say, well, yeah, I want to see Israel thrive, exist, survive, maybe in these different borders. If you can't say that, then probably you want to see Israel destroyed, and you may be an anti-Semite, right? Mehdi, go on, please.
You want to wipe Israel and millions of Israeli Jews off the map. Even many critics of Israel are often left frantically conceding, yes, of course I support Israel's right to exist.
But not you. You're not going to frantically concede that Israel's got a right to exist because you are more honest. You don't want Israel to exist. You don't think it has a right to exist. You're not into that. And so you are not like those other guys who fall for that silly line. You're not going to say, yes, Israel's got a right to exist because you don't believe it. And you know what? I kind of respect that. All right, go ahead, Mehdi.
But you don't have to concede on this point. It's a bullshit argument. Some of you may know I wrote a book about debating. And if you don't know, you know now. And today...
Shameless plug for your book about winning an argument every time. I mean, just think about that. Think what he's saying. Win an argument every time. That means it's all tactical. It means you're not listening. You're winning. You're always winning because that's what he's about. He's not about thinking it out. He's just here to defeat. I mean, even the title itself, win an argument every time. I think to myself, like, is that the way you want to approach the world? That you always want to come out? You don't want to hear the other person? I mean, if you want to win every time, listen to the other person, discuss. But okay, fine, I understand. You're teaching tactics about how to win. Please enlighten us with some of your tactics against Israel's right to exist. Let's see.
Today, I want to share with you 3 arguments you can use if you find yourself stuck in a debate with someone who insists you recognize Israel's right to exist. Here's how you debunk.
I just want to say, I don't need to insist on Israel's right to exist. It exists. And I like to explain it to you, but if you don't understand it, I don't need to insist it. We need to fight to be strong. If we can't prove it to you with words, with reason, with law, with history, then you're just going to have to accept it as fact because we're going to push back against your efforts to destroy physical Israel. But Mehdi is undermining Israel's legitimacy, not its right to exist. His whole business is to undermine the legitimacy of Israel's right to exist. And that's what he's attacking here.
Time for a debunking.
We shall see.
Number 1, right to exist where? Where? Where does this right to exist actually apply? Because Israel is the only country in the world that refuses to define its borders.
What? What did you say? Israel refuses to define. It's the only country in the world that refuses to define its borders. Are there no other countries in the world that have problems with the exact borders? Let's see. If I go to ChatGPT and I look up places that have borders, countries with disputed borders, it turns out that Ukraine and Russia have got a problem, as we all know. Kosovo, Serbia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, right? These are places that have problems with borders. There are ones in Europe. There are ones in the Middle East, right? Turkey and Syria, for example, have a border dispute issue, right? Iran, UAE have a border dispute issue, all right, about islands. In Asia, there's this little tiny disputed border between China and India, right? So China and Taiwan. In Africa, there's the famous case of Morocco and Western Sahara. The Americas have problems. Polar regions have problems. So Mehdi Hasan, he whips out his first argument to you is that Israel refuses to define its borders, right? It's the only country in the world. Israel has borders. It has also territories. Judea and Samaria is a territory that it controls. His whole argument is going to be that it's a problem of exactly where the borders are. That's your big debunking because it has some border issues. You know where Israel's right to exist is in. You know where it is. It's where Israel existed 2,000 years ago and 3,000 years ago. It's the place where it exists now. The exact borders, you're right. There's some conflicts on the borders. Does that mean that a country that has border issues is not legitimate? That's your big argument? When there are tens of countries around the world that have border problems, that's your big debunking? This is your genius line. Where exactly do these Jews define Israel? Where is it exactly? I don't quite understand. That's your big argument, that some border issues in Judea and Samaria and in Gaza, that's your big chiddush, your big innovation. I tell you, Mehdi, not so brilliant. Not so brilliant, really. It's like easy to be like, what do you mean? There's tons of countries with border problems. Why would you say that Israel is the only country that refuses to define its borders? Like there's many countries that define their borders, but other countries don't accept it, or they're having internal issues about their borders. What was the great innovation that you brought here as your giant point number one? Let's keep listening.
That right of Israel's extended to Gaza, the West Bank, the Golan Heights, East Jerusalem, all of which are considered illegally occupied territory under international law.
Yeah, we know that that's not true. We know that that's the biggest myth out there, illegally occupied under international law. Please, we know that that's not true. We know that it just depends on which international law you're looking at. And also, by the way, international law doesn't always cover these things. Look at the other countries. They also have border problems. They also have international law doesn't solve your border problem. It just doesn't have answers for border problems. There's disagreements between nations. So this whole point is just a joke. His whole point is to say, I don't know exactly where Israel begins and ends. I know where it begins, but I don't know where it ends. And so therefore it's illegitimate. Just a stupid point by the win argument every time dude.
And yet all of which are claimed by the current government of Israel.
Oh, wait, so it is claimed. It is defining the borders, right? So Israel is defining its borders to include Judea and Samaria, to include the Golan Heights, to include East Jerusalem, which is under Israeli law, just part of Israel. Gaza, we gave it away, mistaken. Now we're controlling part of it under military occupation and control. Does that make a country illegitimate because it has some border issues? Silly. And you just admitted that Israel does define its borders.
As Israeli land. So, right to exist where?
Stupid.
Number two, what is this?
Okay, so we got over the debunking number one. What an utter stupidity. What an utter waste of time. And if somebody faced me, like trying to win the argument with me and was like, where exactly? I'm like, you know exactly where Israel is. And there are many countries that don't have totally defined borders. And that's the simple answer to that. What are you how does that make it not have a right to exist or illegitimate because its borders aren't perfectly laid out? Unclear, very stupid point. Let's see if Mehdi gets any smarter out of zeteo. What does zeteo mean anyway? Anyway, what is the right to exist? Let's see.
Right to exist. Where does it come from? Because states don't have a right to exist. No such natural or legal right exists.
Are you listening to this dude? He goes from stupid to moronic. Now he's saying that there's no general right for states to exist. That's just stupidity. And he's going to go on to say that only individuals have rights and not states. So does that mean that states can be attacked because they have no rights? Listen to this flawed logic that he's going to come up with. Check this.
People, individuals have a right to exist. Human beings have that right, not states. Not countries. States change their composition, their governing structures, their ideologies, their regimes, their borders all the time.
Oh, so now it's okay to change borders. And now he's saying that because people change inside, what about individuals? They also change their ideologies, their internal regimes, their whatever. What does that have to do with having rights? States have rights to exist. Watch this. Watch how he really steps in it.
They're not fixed for eternity. The USSR broke up into Russia and 14 other new states.
Right, because the USSR was an empire. And the empire broke into ethnic national states, which is called self-determination, birth of nations, right? Wilson's 14 points, right? Like individuals, groups that have a connection to their land through heritage and history have an intrinsic right to that land. And that's called self-determination, right? So he's saying that a empire, do you see how dumb this is? He's saying an empire that broke up into constituent states, therefore, the empire has a right according to his argument, you could argue that the empire has a right to exist. No, the empire doesn't have a right to exist. It's a conglomerate of many ethnic peoples. That's what happened to the USSR. So yes, it broke down, but now ethnic peoples live on their ancestral homeland. That's called indigeneity. And that is a enshrined right.
Yugoslavia broke up into Serbia.
Again, Yugoslavia is a type of a conglomerate state. So it broke into its ethnic national subcomponents.
Bosnia, Croatia, and the rest. Czechoslovakia split into...
Again, Czech and Slovakia broke into Czech and Slovak, right? Because the Czechs are an ethnic people with a language and they've been in that place. And they do have a right to exist. And so do the Slovaks as a state. You're right. Empires don't necessarily have that same right. But the constituent ethnic groups have a right to their indigenous lands.
Slovakia and the Czech Republic. What happened to the USSR's right to exist, or Yugoslavia's, or Czechoslovakia's?
How stupid is this conversation? It's amazing that this is point number 2, right? Instead of realizing that there's a difference between empires and authentic indigenous peoples on their ancestral homelands, which is indigeneity, like he doesn't make any distinction between that. So stupid.
I mean, think about it. Does the UK have a right to exist? And if so, does that mean Scotland, for example, can never vote for independence? Would we say to...
Exactly my point. Scotland can vote for independence because it's a ethnic language, an ethnic group, a separate group on a land that they've been living in for thousands of years, that type of thing. So certainly Ireland, and they did vote for independence and they left, right? But you can't say that some other group can come and take over Ireland and claim that Ireland doesn't have a right to exist, right? You wouldn't say that.
Scots who voted in a referendum to be independent from the UK. Sorry, you can't leave. That would be going against the UK's right to exist. Of course not. People have rights, not states. To be clear, there is no right for countries to exist, nor for countries to continue to exist. None whatsoever. And number 3, last but...
I just want to give an example of Belgium, right? Belgium is a conglomerate country, but it was attacked by the Nazis, and then the Allies went into Europe in order to liberate France and Belgium and the other countries from the Nazi imperialistic rule, control, occupation. So in order to liberate countries from an illegal occupation, that's what World War II was fought in Europe, right? And so it's all about states' right to exist. Is the argument is what Mehdi Hasan saying to you is that countries don't have a right to exist and therefore Israel doesn't have a right to exist? Do you hear the dumbness in this? It's like, is that what you're arguing that there's no countries have no rights to exist? Is that your point? And you're throwing all the countries' right to exist down the toilet so that you could say Israel doesn't have a right to exist, so that you could beat people in an argument and say Israel doesn't have a right to exist? That's so it's not even, it's like it's illogical on so many levels. The bottom line is, of course, Israel has a right to exist. It's an ancient peoples and an ancient land, 2 previous commonwealths. Now we're living in the 3rd commonwealth. And of course it has a right to exist. If It's just there's something so like profoundly weird about what he's saying, and his examples are so profoundly weird. But now his point number 3 is the main point. His point number 3 is really what Mehdi Hasan's all about. The question of his first point is, where exactly does Israel exist? A lot of countries have border problems. His second point is that countries don't have rights, which is like the whole basis of the United Nations, is that all these countries come and discuss their problems. Obviously, they have rights to exist, and the UN and other bodies, NATO, are meant to defend countries' right to exist, right? Okay, but he throws all those things away in order to try to fight against Israel. But now here's the main point of who Mehdi Hasan actually is. Check this out.
Not least, if there is a right to exist, as they claim, does Palestine have a right to exist?
Oh, now we're talking. Now we're talking. He doesn't want Israel to have a right to exist, but his beloved fake Palestine, that's what needs to be talked about. That's what he's upset about. He wants to erase and replace Israel. Once he talks about Palestine, well, it's got borders. Although it doesn't have any borders, doesn't even exist, but it's got borders, and it has a right to exist as a nation, as a state, for some reason, while Israel doesn't. Meaning to say all the other stuff doesn't matter. This is what Mr. Argument is all about. He's all about this other thing that he wants. Meaning to say, what was I trying to say to you in the beginning? When Mehdi Hasan says, win every argument, it's all about emotion. It's not about fact. It's about what he's trying to push across. Therefore, he'll win every time, because it's not about truth. He's not about truth. He's about pushing his agenda. Here it is.
Because last time I checked, Israel exists.
That's right, buddy. It does. That's right, buddy. It does exist.
It's a country with sovereignty. It's on the map with its undeclared borders. Over at the UN, it's Israel that's a full member state, not Palestine.
That's right, because it is a state. And Palestine is a jihadist effort to try to erase Israel. Jihadists like you. That's what you're using Palestine for.
And it's the US, by the way, blocking Palestine's right to exist at the UN.
I thought states don't have rights to exist. Everything turns around when Mehdi wants his way.
As a full sovereign member state. The idea that in a world where Israel is genociding the Palestinians in Gaza...
Debunked. There's a lie right there. Debunked. Israel's not genociding the Arabs of Gaza. We fought a war and there were casualties, but nobody's genociding Gaza. That's been debunked a million times over. And it's just, there you go. He wins every argument because he uses these big, explosive, emotional images and words, but it's not true.
Ethnically cleansing them in the West Bank.
Ethnically cleansing them in the West Bank. I wish we would ethnically cleanse the jihadists. I wish we would ethnically cleanse jihadists. But we're not. They're not. It's not an ethnicity jihadism. It just affects an ethnicity. In any case, jihadism is a sickness, and I wish we were getting rid of them much more than we are.
And blocking their legal right to return.
Legal right to return to where? From where? From their 22 countries that they're trying to move in and occupy our ancestral homeland?
From refugee camps across the region. The idea that in that world, Israel's right to exist is the one we should be concerned about, and not Palestine's, is both ridiculous and, let's be honest, racist.
Racist. You want to try to erase the one Jewish state so that you can make a 23rd Arab state. Who's racist? You deny Israel's right to exist in its homeland. Your whole career, you're denying Israel's right to exist. And then you're calling Israel racist? You, sir, are a racist. You, sir, are a Shiite jihadi, okay? You want to destroy Israel. And your three arguments are so bogus. The first one, Israel doesn't have exact borders. So what? The second one, states don't have a right to exist, except for my pet state. Third one is, we should actually be talking about Palestine. These are your brilliant arguments against Israel's right to exist.
But look, this entire discourse is clear propaganda by supporters of Israel. Have you ever heard this phrase used in any other context other than in the context of defending Israel? Do we talk about Belgium's right to exist?
Right. So I used Belgium earlier. Belgium, we definitely fought for its right to exist. It was occupied by the Nazis. We fought a big war, the Allies did, in order to liberate Belgium and to grant it its right to exist. Your handlers, Mehdi, did not do a good job on this one. Okay. They did not prepare it properly because you did not prepare you properly because you picked like a state that literally was its right to exist was challenged. And we had to fight a world war for its right to exist. And so that was a very, I think it's from heaven that he used this ridiculous argument of that Belgium doesn't, we don't talk about Belgium's right to exist. We fought for Belgium's right to exist. Mehdi, do better research, please. It's pathetic.
Luxembourg's right to exist, South Africa's right to exist. Of course we don't, because it's all demonstrable bullshit.
You have not demonstrated anything of depth and logic. You have demonstrated to me that you're a propagandist against Israel and for a so-called Palestine, which is a jihadist entity trying to destroy Israel. Your usage of expletives does not in any way rid you of the weak arguments that you've proffered up here.
So don't be cowed when the right to exist gotcha is thrown in your face.
I'm not cowed, and certainly not cowed by you. And Israel does have a right to exist, and you don't have to recognize it, because we're going to exist. We're going to push back against jihadis like you, and we're going to keep Israel strong, push back on anti-Israel narratives, including the Palestine narrative, and we're going to call you out for the BSer that you are.
Don't be browbeaten or intimidated or guilted into giving Israel a pass. That's what they want, a pass. But this isn't about Israel's existence. It's about Israel's actions. Its apartheid practices, its endless war crimes, and yes, its ongoing genocide in Gaza.
How did that last part have to do with his arguments? He said he's going to debunk three arguments about Israel. He had two arguments, and the third one was just saying, I prefer to talk about Palestine. And so, okay, bottom line is Mehdi Hasan, not very deep, pretty much a hater, and his efforts are to delegitimize Israel. On the other hand, while his arguments are weak, I make no light of his successful efforts to delegitimize and besmirch Israel. These people are effective, even with stupid arguments. They push it out. They push it out. They push it out. They push out good videos, quality videos, and they teach the youth. And people, fall for his posture and his British accent. And so, therefore, I don't take lightly for 1 second the efforts. The arguments were weak, but the effort against Israel is strong, and we have to respect it. We have to fight it. We have to counter it. And it's up to me. It's up to you. It's up to everybody. It's up to the state of Israel, lovers of Israel throughout the world, to push back. It's up to some of my colleagues on YouTube and other places to push back and tell the truth. And it's also up to the Israeli army and leadership to continue to fight and be strong, because people respect success, people respect strength, and that is also a part of what we have to, that's actually the main thing that we have to push out there, which is we're strong, we're right, we're historically accurate, we're the third Commonwealth, God is with us. Don't be embarrassed to use the name of God, because it's true, people fear it, people respect it, and let's push our narrative strongly. And there's many other ways that we could push our narrative, and we got to push back on those bad guys who want to flood the world with their darkness, with their hate, with their replacement theology and replacement narrative. Mehdi Hasan has created a replacement narrative to buttress his replacement theology. He wants to see, theologically, he wants to see Israel destroyed, weak, and certainly not rival his jihadism. And at the same time, he creates a Palestine as an alternative narrative to besmirch Israel. We won't let those lies be promulgated, because we are a force of truth and a force of light. God bless you, folks, wherever you are. Don't forget to support the show. There are great ways to support the show. First thing is to like, subscribe, comment at Yishai Fleisher TV on YouTube and Yishai.tv on the internet. And you can support us through buymeacoffee.com/Yishai. Me and the team will appreciate it so much. And buildisrael.com, where we restore the land of Israel, make it strong, beautiful, and its narrative strong as well. And if you want to see Hebron, the Jewish community of Hebron, and the tomb of the patriarchs and matriarchs strong, go to hebronfund.org. God bless you, folks, wherever you are. Stand strong. Stand in the face of the Mehdi Hasans, who are demonstrably liars, jihadists, and haters. But we shall persevere and overcome, and God will be with us, B'ezrat Hashem, because the time of the redemption is at hand. God bless you, folks, wherever you are. Lots of love, blessings from the land of blessings, heart from the Holy Land, and shalom.